Hey there's Dave Wills, the internet's crying wrestling fan. And let me tell you, Live and in Color with Wolfie D is one heck of a podcast. Wolfie D is great. He's a great podcaster. Oh, he's still running me, damn it.
It's only a kick, a jump, a block. It's only a serve. It's only a tackle, a run. It's only for the fans. After all, it's only pressure. You got this. Adidas.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. How are you doing today, Wolfie?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. I hope everyone else is doing great as well. Beautiful morning today.
Now, not to do a little foreshadowing, but I think I just saw on social media that you had the King around you. I wonder what he might be doing.
I did have the King. He came to my dealership. We actually flew down in the owner's private jet, picked the King up in Memphis and brought him back to Somerset, Kentucky here. He helped us with our grand opening. It was a great turnout, and it was really awesome. He filmed a cool little promo with me, a little commercial. People can see that on my social media. I think he posted it on the Live and in Color website as well.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, it was really cool. So, and we're going to actually have him on here today.
Yeah, can't wait to hear what you guys are talking about today. What a great guest.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah. Well, okay, cool. We ended last podcast with Jeff Jarrett and Brian Armstrong, and basically, they're showing up a little bit more. You guys had just ended your feud with the Rock and Roll Express, and this one is going to start the Heavenly Bodies feud. Now, the Heavenly Bodies were a tag team in Memphis. Dr. Tom Pritchard and Pat Rose, they ended up breaking up, and then around this time, Jim Cornette had just left the WCW, and he had started his own company, Smoky Mountain. The Midnight Express had broken up. He had taken Stan Lane with him to Smoky Mountain. Bobby Eaton stayed back in WCW, and Dr. Tom and Stan Lane formed the newer version of the Heavenly Bodies. But honestly, I think this was the perfect Heavenly Bodies. It was Dr. Tom Pritchard and Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. So why don't you tell us a few thoughts about those guys?
Man, Dr. John Richards, that's what, I can't call him anything but that. I forget the story to it, but it was something, he was at a convenience store in Memphis, and some guy at the store, and they would always get your name, fans always get your name screwed up. I was Wolfie D, I was Wolfie Dundee, I was all kinds of stuff. They get your name so screwed up. But he was Dr. John Richards, and that's what the guy was calling him. A lot of us that know him closely to this day, I can't call him anything but Dr. John. But we know who all he's trained. We know what he's done for the business and what he continues to do with Glenn Jacobs at the Jacobs and Pritchard Wrestling Academy there in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That speaks for itself. Being in the ring with him is an honor, and he was, at that time in my career, I'd probably, that would have been probably a little over 10 years in the business, so I pretty much kind of knew what I was doing at that point. And right. And Jimmy Del Rey was a great worker. I forget what year that was, he passed away, but awesome worker. And they would do all kinds of stuff with us, and we just had really good matches. We went to Smoky Mountain and worked them. We started an angle there that never got off the ground because Smoky Mountain closely thereafter went out of business. Right. But we had went there to try to continue the feud at another promotion, which would have been great because, Cornette was there. When they were coming to Memphis, Corny didn't make the shots, and nobody wanted to make Memphis TV from Knoxville. First of all, as a lot of people know, the talent did not get paid for Memphis TV. The only people that got paid for Memphis TV were the job guys. So that was one thing that was hard to get anybody further outside of Memphis to come to TV because they didn't want to make that 6-hour trip and not get paid, So that was a challenge, which I never really understood that, but is what it is. I guess they figured, hell, you're working tonight in Nashville, but times had changed and they really didn't catch up with that, I don't believe. So at any rate, though, working the Heavenly Bodies was really a great experience, and like I said, it could have been more, but it was nearing the end of Smoky Mountain, and it wasn't too long after the USWA, I think 97 or 98 or something like that was when they ended up going out of business. So we were nearing the end of the road on some of that when the timing. Again, we've talked about timing so much in the wrestling business throughout this podcast and our episodes that it was just a thing, man. Timing is everything.
Yeah, it truly is. And, the Heavenly Bodies, I remember them because, you guys had this amazing feud with the Rock and Roll Express, but the Heavenly Bodies really picked up where the Midnight Express left off with the Rock and Roll Express. The Heavenly Bodies were that classic tag team. They act more pretty than they are. I remember Dr. Tom teasing his hair and Gigolo doing his little ravishing Rick Rude bump and grind move there. And to me, they were just this classic team. Not to speak ill of the dead, but Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey was not the most attractive man in the world. We'll just go with that. But the dude could wrestle. They would do that classic cut off the ring, old school wrestling tag team, style. And it was a great, and I thought you guys were great with them because you guys, again, did your style with their style. So it was definitely different than the Rock and Roll Express, but it took over just like a champ. So really, you guys, you dropped the belts to them, and then you kind of go back and forth here. I'm going over my paperwork here. Basically, there's a match you guys won via DQ because of Brandon Baxter. I remember seeing him a lot.
Brandon, I forget how he got into the business, but he was a great talker. He ended up, to say how great of a talker he is that he's now ended up on radio, and I believe he still does that. I know his show is very successful. I believe it's in somewhere around Arkansas. I think it's Jonesboro maybe, but he has some kind of morning show where he's the main, DJ morning show guy, and it does really well. So it just says what a talker he is. Just looking at him, he got heat, little skinny, and he used to have that blonde mullet, and then now he's bald now, but he had that blonde mullet, so just looking at him, he got heat, and then he could talk, and, he did his job well.
What is it about guys with mullets going bald, Wolfie? I don't get it, brother. What did we do?
I think mine was a combination of, but to this day, my biological father has a long, full head of hair. They say it skips generation, but his dad has a full head of hair when he passed away. But I think it was a combination of, because I don't have much feeling from getting color on the top of my forehead up here. I don't know if it's dead nerve cells or I also, before I started losing my hair, I was bleaching my hair a lot. When we went in WCW, I had blue hair, I had red hair, and I was coloring it with some really chemicals that probably weren't the best for my hair. But anyway, I probably could have kept it a little longer, but as soon as I saw that the hairline receding and got that little spot up top there that wasn't growing too well, I was like, screw this, man. I'm taking this stuff off.
You know what's funny is I shaved mine at 17, senior day in high school, and everybody was like, Jimmy, you look like you're 30, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to keep this. And so they were like, let's knock it down. And the baseball players, we sat in the baseball dugout and we shaved it down. It was awesome. So anyway,
we can say that not everybody can pull off a bald head. Let's just put it that way. And it's also been proven that bald-headed men are sexier. They also have high testosterone.
Yeah, so there you go, girls. That should explain a lot of them broken hearts we've left behind, right? Or maybe just anyway. So get back to the topic here, because I think that was amazing. You lead up to an 18 tag tournament here, and it's announced for the titles at the Coliseum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you some of these names and just quick response on them. You don't have to go into these too long. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on some of these guys. We may not ever talk about them again. So basically, the first team is the King Cobra and the Spellbinder. What do you quickly remember?
Spellbinder, I spent a lot of time with him. I consider him a good friend. When they brought him in as a WWF developmental guy, I mean, and he knows this ain't nothing. He was terrible. I worked with him a lot, and being as big as he was, he's muscle bound, 280, like 6'4" or something. He was hard to work with when he couldn't do a lot. But he did get better, and I was a huge mark for the Spellbinder gimmick. I wish that it would have taken off, because Dell is a legit magician. He could do some really good stuff. It just never panned out, and I don't know if it was that he couldn't make it work or they couldn't make it work or whatever, but I really loved that gimmick. I thought it was cool. It was original, and I'm a big mark for Magic. So for me, I loved it. If it would have just been played better. But Dell's a great dude. I still talk to him every now and then. And King Cobra. Now, Cobra was a guy that he's, before my time, I knew of him and what he had done in the business. Great worker, heck of a nice guy, and worked with him more than just that. He was on a lot of Buddy Wayne shows. Buddy used him a lot. At the time that I was around, he wasn't wrestling as much, so he wasn't, heavily involved in stuff. So I don't have a great knowledge of him other than what I just said.
Yeah, no problem. I always thought the Spellbinder gimmick was amazing too. I just, dude was jacked, so that was a no-brainer. Okay, so the next tag team, we've talked about Gorgeous George III. Everybody knows how awesome he is, the Stro. But Yellow Jacket. Now, this is funny because we'll hear more about Yellow Jacket a little bit later on. Basically, there's a time that he's putting together every team. Now, I know it's not him, but he is putting together every team he can to try to top you guys. But tell us a quick story about the Yellow Jacket while we've...
Yellow Jacket was Kevin Lawler, the younger son of the King, Brian's brother. And we used to rib him so bad because the Yellow Jacket, that's the outfit that he had on was actually like a little muscle suit. He wore that because he was small, and so up under all that was this air-filled muscle suit, kind of like the kids would buy for Halloween, to be the Hulk or Captain America or whatever. But I can't remember if he had it made or made it. I don't remember, man. But it was the first person that I'd ever seen do anything like that. And I don't know if the people could really tell. I mean, I know some of before they were smart marks, before that was a term, they knew it was Kevin and all that stuff. But, and bless him, Kevin. He was a better referee than he was a wrestler, but... Yeah.
And then we got Tracy Smothers and Terry Gordy. Now, we've gone over Tracy. We'll talk more Tracy on down the line. But I really would love to hear your story about Terry Gordy. Anything you got on Gordy? What a great big man,
Well, I think that might have been the only match we worked him. And this was post, prime Terry Gordy. This was after he'd had his things like that. I don't really remember, but what I do remember was during the Smoky Mountain feud, and they had him come in for the finish out of the crowd at the Coliseum, and Terry was supposed to come in, get me up on a table, and give me his pile driver through the table for the finish. Yeah. And, like I said, this is post-stroke, so his mind wasn't all there. He comes in, and the table, for whatever reason, was laying on the ground. It wasn't set up, so it threw him. So he picks me up, does not set the table up. He picks me up, holds me in the pile driver for what felt like an hour. I'm just sitting there upside down. He's kind of walking around with me and just holding me up. And then, I don't know, and then something clicked, and he finally just kind of gave me the pile driver on the table that was laying on the floor.
Oh, man.
But it was just so awkward, and it's not making fun or anything like that, but just it was not Terry Gordy in his prime. But that's the one thing that I remember. It felt like I was held upside down in this pile driver for an hour. It was crazy.
I mean, I can't imagine that feeling. This big, massive bear dude like a legit strong man holding you up. Your head probably got blood rushing to it. And I had color anyway, so all the blood's rushing to my head, blood's dripping everywhere. It's pouring out. Yeah. Oh, man, that's hilarious. So then the other team is Brian Christopher and Bill Dundee. We've got a funny Bill Dundee story coming up. We won't get into that. You don't need to cover anything with them, but Axel Rotten and Brian Lee. Now, you know what I remember, Ian and Axel had their tag team, and I know we'll talk about Ian a little later too, but Axel, he was a heck of a worker, was he not? I mean, maybe not at this time, but he turned into a
I believe Ian owes everything to Axel. I've always said that. Yeah, he was a great worker. They didn't really use him in Memphis to his potential, and then he went on to, really get over in ECW. But Axel was a great worker. And then the whole Brian Lee thing, heck, I watched Brian before I ever got in the business, and, Brian was a great worker that would end up being probably my second best partner in the wrestling business with the Disciples of the New Church when I was Slash, and he was the Killdozer Brian Lee for TNA. We had a nice tag team title run there with Father James Mitchell as our manager. So, I got nothing but good things to say about Brian. I originally met him in Puerto Rico when we went there. But, Brian, and I can't get a hold of that guy, man. I've tried to get in touch with him for this podcast, actually, and he's just, I don't know, man, Brian, I don't know if he just don't want to have anything to do with the wrestling business or what. Right. Nobody can get in touch with him. I've heard other people say the same thing. So.
Well, he might be just hidden, like you said. Maybe just wants to stay away from it. Sometimes when you're out, it's like the mafia. You stay out, almost like you're in witness protection.
Absolutely.
I know it's done you well after your career. You've become the heavyweight champion of auto sales, which is just amazing to think about if you think about it. So anyway, it works for some and doesn't for others. So Doug and Tommy, we won't need to cover Doug and Tommy. Those are Say About Some Wildfire and, PG-13, the Heavenly Body. So that rounds out the 8 tag teams. So I'm going to quickly go over this here. So basically in the tournament, you guys go over the Heavenly Bodies in the first round. Then in the semis, you go over Axel and Brian, and then you win the tournament there by beating Tracy and Terry Gordy. So that got you back the titles. You guys carrying that again. I've lost count. Still Real Dave Wills probably knows exactly what number that was, so throw a shout out to Still Real there. And so then in September 11th, actually, what's funny, at the Coliseum, you guys go over the Heavenly Bodies in a Boys in the Hood street fight. Now, I've said Boys in the Hood because Meltzer's got me into trouble reading off his paperwork here, but I've said Boys in the Hood when it was really a Texas death match. Wolfie has straightened me out on that, but I still can't stop saying Boys in the Hood. So I do kind of believe that this might have been a Boys in the Hood street fight. Do you remember anything about that?
I don't doubt that. I think we probably called it that, but it was Texas Deathmatch Rules, if I remember correctly. Okay, we just named it that.
Just named it Boys in the Hood because that's what you guys were, Boys in the Hood. So that makes sense. So cool. Now, here's the story that I think this is going to be the jewel of the podcast, other than our upcoming conversation with Jerry, is tell us this story about you and Mr. Dundee having a little backstage conversation here.
Yeah, so the deal was, Bill was, and to put it, only way I know to say it, was very jealous of the push we were getting. Bill tried to block us from even getting a job at USWA. It's strange that he would try to block his own kid, but wrestlers and their kids sometimes have strange relationships. But anyway, as we start getting that push and everything, he's knocking us to the office. He's doing this, he's doing that, but yet on his gimmick table, and Bill's one of them old school guys. He's there at 6 o'clock with everything out there before the doors open, making his money on his gimmicks. And one picture he's got is one of myself, Jamie, and him all standing in the ring together. So he's selling this picture. I don't remember. They're, the 5x7s or 4x6s or whatever they were, that everybody sold, for a little extra to get the three of us together. So that's kind of hurting. Why would somebody want to buy one individual Bill Dundee picture and one individual PG-13 picture when they can get one picture of all of us, for a little bit less? So I went to Jamie. I said, you know what, Jamie? I said, this is bullshit, man. I said, he's cutting in on our money. I said, and then, beyond that, he's knocking us to the office every freaking week. I said, he needs to give us some money out of that. Jamie said, man, that's my dad, man. I can't say nothing, man. I can't say nothing to him. You say something to him. I said, fine.
Oh, man.
I forget. It was a spot show. I believe it was a Buddy Wayne show, like on a Friday night or something. And I think it was in Mississippi or something like that. And so Bill is in the dressing room, very small little high school gym in a small town, and he's laying down. He's already dressed. He's laying down on a bench. And so I walk in there, and I'm trying not to do this in front of the boys, right? And so I said, "Hey, Bill," I said, "Can I have a word with you? Can you step out here? You know, I want to get out of the dressing room and get into the hallway there." It was just me and him. And he said, "You got something to say to me, mate? You say it right here." And that wasn't the greatest Bill Dundee impression, but
it'll work.
So he said, I said, "Okay, Bill." I said, "I'm trying to do this, professionally." And I said, "I think it's bullshit, Bill, that, you're knocking us, blah, 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 blah. You got this picture right here." I said, "I want some money off that picture." I said, "You owe it to us." Because, just what I explained to you about the reason, people would buy that one instead of two individuals.
Right. Yeah.
And he got to mouthing, and then I got to mouthing, and I don't remember what words were said, but the final thing was he started to set up on the bench. And I said, "Okay, Bill," then I kind of put my hands out to the side, and I said, "Well, what the fuck's up then? Fighting words, what the fuck's up? I mean, let's go."
Yeah.
And he said, "You want to know what's up? I'll show you what's up." And he fucking reaches into his boot, and he pulls out his fucking knife, about a 12-inch fucking knife.
Oh, my God.
So I took a step backwards, obviously, and he stands up with the knife in his hand and kind of starts coming at me. Well, thankfully, Randy Hales and Doug Gilbert were there, and Doug grabbed like I said, this was like a high school. So you remember, I think it was a overhead projector. You remember how they had them on those little carts that they'd wheel into the classroom or whatever?
Yeah.
So there's one of those carts, and like I said, I believe it was an overhead projector that was on top of it. So Doug takes that thing and just pushes it and kind of gets in between us and puts the cart and the projector like in between us, so that creates a barrier where Bill can't come stab my guts out. And that was the end of that. They ended up. Bill had to leave right then. Randy fired him right there on the spot, and he left and whatnot. But me and Bill, we'll talk more about this, of him coming back, because like I said, they fired him right there. Now, he did end up coming back, and Lawler and Randy both came to me and said, "Hey, we want to do this angle." Of course, they wanted to, capitalize off the shoot incident in the dressing room, and have you and Bill work an angle. At first, I was like, "Fuck no!" But then I got to thinking about that. Might be some money, you know what I mean? And so we ended up doing it with me and Bill over that. So
yeah. Now a little later this year, if I'm not mistaken, he and Bert start Ozark Mountain, but we'll get into that later. But he becomes your competition not a month or two later, but then for a town or two, like Evansville maybe. Anyway, we'll talk about that. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here. So that is amazing, because to me, Bill, he's Australian, right? I mean, he was Scottish, but then he lived in Australia. And he's pulling this, what does that make me think of? That makes
Crocodile
me think
Dundee.
of that's not a Crocodile Dundee. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's not a knife, mate.
That's not a knife. This is a knife.
Exactly. And I can't imagine. I mean, is it like, are you like immediately like he's going to stab me, or is it like I'm still ready to throw?
I don't remember really what was going through my head, other than, like I said, I didn't run from it. I just took a couple steps back, like, oh shit, what's fixing to happen now? That type of thing in the moment, you really don't have time to think.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, well, I guess I'm getting stabbed, basically.
Yeah, and you don't, and to this day, I don't know whether that was him, showing his feathers, flexing his muscles, and just trying to back me off, or would he have done something had I, escalated the situation from there? I don't know. But me and Bill, since that day, well, I don't want to say since that day, but when he came back and worked with me, I think I earned his respect. He earned mine. He worked his ass off with me, and we beat the crap out of each other, legit. And it was a good angle, and we've been cool ever since.
Yeah, and you've said that multiple times. You're cool with him. It's the way things work in wrestling, right? I mean, you guys are all going to war essentially, and
Yeah.
you're traveling, you've got to kind of come through it and pull together, but you would still back him up if you needed to. It's always cool to hear about that stuff.
Can you imagine something like that happening at a regular job?
Circuit City?
The police would be called, charges would be pressed.
Yeah, somebody's call center or something. I mean, I'm sure that happened somewhere, but anyway, that's an amazing story, and thank you for sharing that. So this is the last thing we're going to talk about, and then we're going to have those three little letters come up again. And I know we've spoken a little bit about that time in the WWF, but I'm going to cover some more in-depth stuff that I wanted to ask you about. But let's leave it with this. So on September 23rd at TV, you guys lose to Techno Team 2000 in a non-title match after Jesse James Armstrong uses the hubcap on Wolfie. So quickly, I know we're going to talk about Techno Team 2000 here on the next episode a little bit more because they pick up like a feud with you and the Bodies in a way. But tell us a quick little, a little bit. Travis and Troy, Eric Watts and
Eric Watts, and I can't remember the other guy's name. I think he got into NASCAR or something.
Yeah.
He was developmental but never panned out. Not sure what Eric's doing these days. And, they just weren't, it wasn't going to work with them. They were not the greatest. And I don't really want to talk bad about anybody, but I believe Eric was not his father. And in his mind might have believed that maybe he was or something.
Or better.
Never worked out. And as far as feuds that I've been in as PG-13, not real memorable. The only memorable thing, honestly, about that, and to me, they were just a newer version of the New Breed, Chris Champion and Sean Royal, who I really loved that back when I was a kid, and that's all that was a rehash of that. And they did not pull it off like Chris and Sean did, not even close. But
Right.
Dave Brown used to get so mad at certain things, and I called him on TV. I called him the Techno Turds, and man, after the show, Dave Brown lit into me, and it's like, oh my God! Think about all the things that have been said on TV, and especially the Attitude Era, which was kind of happening at this point.
Right.
Techno Turd, really? You're going to get on my ass about saying Techno Turd, but he lit into me, man. You can't say that on this TV. I'm the weatherman here, and the phones have lit up ever since you said it. I don't know if that was true or not. I can't see people calling the TV. I can't believe he said turd on television. Anyway, well, that's about the extent of that.
At least Jesse James Armstrong hit you with a hubcap. So we're going to stop there. Like I said, next podcast that we continue on your journey, whether it's the next episode or the next after that, it will pick up with the WWF. Like I said, we've covered a little bit about it, but we're going to go in depth on things. I want to ask you a few different other things. So, and then our next episode that we cover will round out 95, and then we get into 96, 97, and so much more. So I'm really excited. But while we're at it, let's go ahead and do a little current affairs. Hey, DJ, hit that music.
It's a current affair. It's a current affair. Love it in color. It's a current affair. Love it in color.
All right, we're back to current affairs. Everybody's favorite part of the show. Well, mine. I'm just kidding. Not everybody else's, but mine is our current affairs, Wolfie. So, are you caught up on all your wrestling?
Let's see. No.
Okay, that makes it even better. Always. So the first, of course, the AEW's having their big deal this weekend in Chicago. So AEW has kind of almost stuck a flag in beating NXT. So they put NXT on another night. They didn't want to face them anymore. And, I think Vince undersold the idea of putting developmental talent up against AEW, which really could have been more against Raw or SmackDown. So NXT was Triple H's baby. And like we've said, NXT is kind of the further thing. But now it appears that Vince is taking over NXT. What do you see happening there? Big dudes and nobody who can wrestle and stuff like that. What do you see with Vince taking over?
NXT is what it was supposed to be, is people that are not ready for the main roster yet, and you're putting them in a position to be a whole nother, to me it seems like a whole nother product that is a main roster, because actually Lawler and I were talking about this on the plane ride the other day. As he was saying, you got these dudes ain't ready yet, and so you're putting them in this position to be because the fans don't really understand. They just see a different wrestling show. That's all they see, and it's not, okay, well, these guys are, farm team, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know, but I've always heard that Vince and Hunter bump heads quite often. So who knows what's going on with that, man? I don't know. I've been out of that for so long. It's hard to say. I don't know the personalities and what's happening there, but I mean, we'll see.
As with anything with the WWE, Vince is the final say. It doesn't matter who he's allowed to run anything or not, He hired Eric Bischoff and fired him before the first SmackDown. That's how, he hired him to run SmackDown and then fired him before the SmackDown was even on air. So, that's just kind of how Vince is, I guess. We won't cover that too much more, but basically it does lead me into the other thing, is that Meltzer has reported, I believe, that WWE is no longer looking at the indies like they have been. They've had guys like Samoa Joe, Tommaso Ciampa, Kevin Steen, all these guys coming in and becoming their stars. Mm-hmm. But now they're going younger and they're going back to athletes. So essentially kind of what you guys face in OVW, when they brought in Cena and they brought in, I know, like they're bringing in these raw athletes, with Dave Bautista and stuff like that. Do you think that'll work? I mean, it has before, but
I've never understood that. I don't get it. It's like somebody coming to me and saying, man, I think you would really make a good ballet artist, man. We're going to give you some money to go do some ballet, man. We think you'd really be good at it. My heart wouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't get that. You need somebody, especially the punishment that your body takes in the wrestling business. I feel like you have to have the want to and all that. And I'm sure the money sounds good to these guys at first, and they're athletes, so they do understand what's going to go into it until they actually get out there. I've heard, because I train people at the USWA school, and then I have my own school. I mean, I've had guys that played college football and stuff like that tell me, man, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And because it's not just how strong you are, how fast you are, and can you run a route. There's a lot of timing. You have to have watched wrestling, because there's a certain way that a wrestler walks around the ring. There's a certain way a wrestler sells a certain thing. There's just things you don't know and almost can't coach that quickly until you have some sort of experience at our business. And yes, I know it's changed, and I don't want to be that old school guy, but at the same time, there's just things that, like I said, you have to have seen it. You got to know some of the history, and I've never understood that at all. I do not. They don't respect it. A lot of people respect it at all. Kind of like the fan. I don't want to say the fan, even the people that are not wrestling fans, when they talk about it, the words they use, and they think it's corny, and they don't even appreciate the athleticism and the punishment, the term fake and all that bullshit, man. It's like, why are you paying these guys to come do something that it's not in their heart? I don't know, man. It's always been wild to me.
And you can tell these last few signees, I think they even just signed that guy that won a gold medal at the U.S. Olympics. I'm flipping on it.
That's how I get my news, Jimmy. That's how I get my wrestling news, is Facebook posts.
I get it, man. Well, that makes sense. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. But my final current affair is that your old stomping grounds, TNA Impact, is really putting out a hard press to sign Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. Now, will they get them? Who knows? I do know the AEW is getting flooded out a little bit with guys. Can you see Braun and Bray working and doing something good in Impact? I mean, what do you think about that?
I would say, business decision-wise, I don't think they would go.
Yeah.
Money decision, it's a possibility. So there's some factors there. If they just,
right.
If he could get some creative control, thinks that they could actually help out there. But from what I understand, and again, I don't follow too much, it's like TNA Impact is now number 3, and not really making any waves or anything like that. And you've got all these marks that are loving AEW right now, so that would be the choice, I would think, would to go there, because it'd kind of be like the CM Punk thing. If Bray were to go there, they would go nuts, I think. And I mean, I saw a thing again where I guess there was an old merch record for AEW. Like, who was that? Shit. I cannot remember who it previously was, but I guess Punk's new shirt has smashed whatever record the other person had. So, I mean, they've definitely got the momentum right now, and to be able to sign those two guys would, obviously do nothing but make it even bigger and more legit, and,
Now, let's say you're booking AEW. Would you bring them in as a combo? I mean, because they have that history in the WWE, or would you bring them in totally separately? What do you think? I mean, Bray is kind of his own universe.
I think you have to bring them in as a combo, reunite them there,
Yeah. I mean, that's
as close to what their old gimmick was as you could get away with.
Right.
Unless Bray's very creative, unless he comes up with something, completely different, which I'm sure you have a hand in it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when he was doing the Husky Harris gimmick, and I was like, this kid's got something, As little as I know about inner workings of the wrestling world, I felt like he had something, So, well, anyway. Well, that wraps up our current affair. I don't want to beat you too much with this stuff here, so thank you so much, as always.
Ready for the king, baby. I'm ready for the king. We got to get the king on the phone.
Now, after our sponsors, we're going to play a couple advertisements for the kids here, and then we're going to bring in Jerry the King Lawler. You ready, Wolfie?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. We'll be right back.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Hey folks, to get your official Live and in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest on the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. A multi-time world champion, a WWE Hall of Famer, and the one true king of professional wrestling, Mr. Jerry the King Lawler. Mr. Lawler, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that introduction. You read it just like I wrote it.
I love it.
Hey, King, it's Wolfie here. How are you, man?
Hey, Wolfie. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. Hey, just like Jimmy said, we want to thank you for coming on. And I know I kind of prepped you a little bit on what I wanted to talk about. We're 6 episodes into this podcast, and we're kind of going through my career first of all. So my first thing is, I've worked you, Lord knows how many times, and it was always, great fun working with you. When Jerry Jarrett gave us the job in 1993, we came in as, mid-card kind of comic relief guys, small little heels that, could do comedy spots and all that kind of stuff, but we could still work at the same time. When Jerry came to you with those 4 rap videos that he made for us, what was your first impression of me and Jamie? Obviously, you knew Jamie before you knew me, but what was your impression of the 13 gimmicks?
Well, you're right. I did know Jamie before I knew you. And to be perfectly honest with you, my opinion still today is the same as it was back then. I don't care if anybody knows it, but I think rap is crap. And I told Jerry Jarrett that back then. I said, hey, that's just my own personal opinion. I think a lot of the kids will like this and will respond to this. And if one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, and especially don't give us credit for down in the Memphis territory, was we built wrestlers and we made guys careers off of music videos. Yeah. And you guys were no exception. I mean, with the music videos that we put together, and I say we, it wasn't me, but Mike Shields and what was his name? Randy West. Randy West. Yeah, I started to say Ron West. Randy West. But those guys put those things together, and they did such a great job. Those music videos meant more in getting a wrestler over, getting you guys over, than if you'd give them 10 squash matches on TV. Yeah, I mean, it was just magic. It was a magic time at that point in time, and we did it with the Rock and Roll Express. We did it with the Fabulous Ones. We did it. It helped me and Bill Superstar Dundee. And so, I knew that when I saw those, even though I didn't like the music, I liked the videos. Yeah. And I thought, I knew at that time that you guys were going to be able to get over, and you did.
Yeah. And you talk about those music videos. I mean, I remember watching as a kid, and some of the ones that stick out, you mentioned, the Fabulous Ones videos before they came in, those were awesome. You dropped a bomb on me, particularly. And then the Kamala video where they had him in the jungle and, all that stuff. It just made you really want to see this person in the ring, and the build-up was, unmatchable. Like you said, he could come in there, Kamala could have come in there and squashed everybody. It would have not meant as much as seeing this crazy-looking dude, walking around in the jungle with a spear was just like, holy cow, man, this is cool,
Which, of course, was Jerry Jarrett's backyard in the little pond that we threw some dry ice into the water out there, and then we told James, walk out there about 6 or 8 feet. I'd never forget, he said, ain't no snakes out here, is it? No, certainly not. Of course, I'd never even been there before, but that kind of stuff. I don't know what it was like. It was like people were watching a movie or a special TV show about this person, and it made them appear to be a star more so than if they all of a sudden just saw him out there walking into the ring and wrestling. It was just did that for him, and oh my gosh, the Fabulous Ones, all those ZZ Top videos, Sharp Dressed Man, all of that sort of stuff. That it absolutely made those guys more so than people actually see them in person. I mean, it was so good because you didn't. When we first put Steve and Stan together, and the same thing with Rock and Roll Express, those guys were not top tier main event caliber wrestlers at that time. And if you had just thrown them out there in matches right off the bat, people would have seen that. But instead, instead for weeks and weeks, we featured those music videos, and by the time the people saw them in person, they were already over. They didn't care how they worked then. They just wanted to see these guys that they thought were big music video stars.
Right. Keeping with kind of the timeline here. So as I said, Jamie and I came in and we were mid-card, guys or whatever. Hadn't put on the size, especially me, that I'd put on later when we kind of started main event and everything. I want to say this, though. I know at that time, every Monday night, and it was usually in Memphis, I would go sit upstairs and make it a point. I mean, I was always a fan of yours growing up, but then being there and being able to go sit upstairs where the fans weren't after my match and watch whoever it was you were working that night. And there was a lot of times, it was when WWF was sending guys down for you to main event with. Undertaker, Bret Hart, Lex Luger, all those guys, Randy Savage, and I'd sit up there and watch your match. I really didn't watch any other matches, quite frankly. I just wanted to see what you did because I learned so much psychology just by watching your matches, and that's just a personal thank you to you. I mean, working with you obviously taught me more than that, but I sat up there every Monday night and watched you, and to this day, I still say psychology and just believability, you are one of the all-time greats.
Well, I appreciate that. But you guys, let's talk a little bit more about you guys, PG-13. And you mentioned the fact that, hey, you were small and you even called it comedy, comedy relief and that sort of stuff. But in reality, you guys reminded me of what me and what myself and Jim White were like when we first started in the Tennessee territory. Mm-hmm. We were small. We were the territory at that time when Nick Goulas and Roy Welch owned the Tennessee territory. They had big lumbering heels like Al Green and Don and Al Green and the Von Brauners, which were the two big German guys that they were managed by Saul Weingroff. And then there were the interns managed by Dr. Ken Ramey and all of these big Bobby Hart and Lorenzo Parenti, all of these big guys. And suddenly me and Jim White showed up, smaller than those guys, but we did what you guys did. Mm-hmm. We took a lot of bumps because we took a lot of bumps, and we did things when you call comedy. We would do things that would in the matches that would make the babyface look like they were smarter than us, outsmarting us, making us look stupid and everything, and we didn't mind doing that. And what we found out was that all of a sudden the baby faces wanted to work with us instead of these big lumbering, big, huge heels that would just want to beat them down. They wanted to work with us because we would put them over like $1 million by taking all the big bumps, by making people laugh at us and being comedy relief like you guys were. And that was the secret to our success. And it has been throughout my entire career. And if you look at people that have really been successful, you'll see that in their matches they sell a lot more than they're making comebacks. Even guys, if you really look, even guys like Hulk Hogan, if you really go back and watch a Hulk Hogan match, Hulk would sell about 80% of the match, and then all of a sudden he'd Hulk up, make the comeback, drop the leg, win the match. And boom, that was the secret to his success. Well, we were the same way. We love to sell, and you guys were great at that also. And I think that's what made you guys successful was the baby faces wanted to work with you because you guys would make them look great.
Right. And so thank you for that. And to fast forward a little bit, I think it was 94 going into 95. Jeff goes to WWE or WWF. You're there most of the time. So that leaves, Randy Hales has the book at that time, and we go from being that mid-card team as heels that I was talking about to Randy has this, and I think he was the only one that believed that we could do it, is to push us. And then Brian switched babyface. So it was me and Jamie and Brian on the babyface side, basically. Tommy and Doug on the heel side, rock and roll, and then the whole angle USWA versus Smoky Mountain thing. I think, personally, that a lot of people on the inside thought Randy was crazy, A, and that B, we were going to fold, that we could not do it without you, and we couldn't do it, even though you and Jeff were there a little bit. it was left to us and Brian as babyfaces to basically carry everything. Then we started doing the Smoky Mountain and all that, and the houses came up, and you still owned half the company at that time. So I know you knew what the houses were doing as far as money coming up. What did you think at that time? Did you think, I can't believe they're doing it, or you had confidence, or what did you think at that time?
Oh, gosh, Wolfie, I told you before we did this. My memory, I've got hit on the head a lot over my career. Yeah. No, my memory on stuff like that is not that sharp. I can't remember. I'm probably sure I did at the time, but I can't specifically remember thinking about, oh gosh, the houses are good down in Memphis. I was probably more concerned with what I was doing up in the WWE, and then coming back down to Memphis on a not a regular basis, but as much as I could, with working up there as well. But yeah, I mean, I know it was, I know it wasn't something that I was complaining about, because I was, I've never been to a point in being owner of the territory that I was disappointed in. I mean, we always did well. I mean, you guys kept things going, and the money kept rolling in, and it was just, I was very happy with the way things progressed there, with you guys being moved up to the top spots.
Yeah. And you were responsible for me and Jamie getting that first shot on Raw. They gave us the win against two, guys or whatever, and then we had the match against the Smoking Guns for the tag team titles, and that was you that got us that deal. First of all, thank you. And I remember because you did an interview for me on that documentary, and you were like, I didn't know if these guys were going to mess up and make me look bad or what, but they didn't. They actually went up there. They did great. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, well, I mean, you pretty much told it there in a nutshell. I was concerned, and I really haven't done that a whole lot, like stuck my neck out for somebody and recommended them, because I always felt like, I didn't want that to come back and bite me in the butt.
Yeah.
And because for a few people it did. I mean, even, let's face it, even my son Brian, he wound up screwing up after, having such a great spot there and doing fantastic. And then he just, made some bad decisions, and he got released, and I went, stuck my neck out with JR and brought him back. And then he got released again, and so you learn a lesson after things like that. But I was proud of the fact that you guys, when you came up there, you did well. I mean, and I know it's a ton of pressure all of a sudden to get put in that worldwide spotlight.
Yeah.
After just working a Tennessee territory, and then all of a sudden, man, you're being seen all over the world on this cable television show.
Yeah.
And it was a ton of pressure, and I was worried, I was concerned that you guys wouldn't be able to handle it, but you did, and I was proud of you.
Yeah, and at the time I think I was 21 years old at that time, and it was amazing. And the thing about it, and again, I know you probably don't remember this, but we had talked, obviously they liked the gimmick. They loved our work. Let
me say this. I was about to add at the end of that, and then you said it. You guys had a great gimmick. I mean, you were the only ones doing that thing, and it was timely, it was topical, and it was easy for the fans to understand what you guys were doing, and they believed in it. So it was one of those things that you guys were doing the right thing at the right time in the right place.
Right, but the one thing that was out of time, and I've said this 100 times because it came from Bruce Pritchard, that, okay, all that stuff, like you just said, they loved, but you guys are too small. Because during that time was when the rings, you had Yokozuna, the rings were reinforced. You had Mabel, you had all these monsters. And I guess it was a year later, because that was 95. So in 96 or so is when you start having the luchador invasion and the cruiserweight invasion, to where all of a sudden the size of the wrestler started shrinking. And it was like we were just about a year too early, because I feel like if that would have happened at that time, I think we could have had a long-term job, if as long as myself and Jamie could have, behind the scenes kept our heads together. But
that is one of the things that has really changed. They say nothing is sure in life except change. And sure enough, that rings true for the WWE for sure. I mean, it's changed over the years. The philosophy of the matches have changed. The ways the shows are put together has changed, and the size and the work of the wrestlers has changed over the years. And you're right. There was a time that, I was shocked, believe it or not. I felt good about you guys getting it, but I was really shocked that Vince and them gave you the chance that they did at that time, because you're right. At that time, it was full of monsters. I mean, there was, like I said, the big Mabel. Oh my gosh, everybody was huge. And that was, at that time, that was the philosophy of the WWE. They wanted bigger than life, huge performers that the people would just look at and go, oh my gosh, this guy is, like you said, a monster. And so for them to give you guys a chance in there, I was pleasantly surprised. But like you said, if it had been a different time, like you mentioned, a year later, you guys probably would have had a longer run, or even like right now. Oh my gosh, they have a bigger, a different mix. They have some big giants as well, but they still have a lot of smaller guys now too.
Right. Yeah, timing is everything in the entertainment business. I've always heard that. Jimmy, you want to talk with the king?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to.
Come on, Jimmy. I know you've been saving up something good.
Well, yeah, I've got two things. And one of them, I want to go back to the music real quick. One of my all-time favorite music hype videos was I think you were the AWA champion, and you used Bob Seger's Turn the Page. That, to me, I can get chill bumps thinking about that to this day. So I just wanted to comment as my personal favorite music video from Memphis area.
Let me say this, Jimmy. I mean, there were a lot of great music videos. And fortunately, that like you said, Wolfie, timing is everything. Those music videos happened at a time when you could just go out and grab anybody's soundtrack and lay some video down over it and show it on TV. Today you cannot do that. It got, all of a sudden, after a few years, all the artists, and rightfully so, hey, they saw somebody using their soundtrack, they wanted to be paid for it. And now, of course, you can't even, I mean, all the TV stations and everything now will not even you have to pay in advance before you use somebody's music on TV. But back in those days, we could just grab any song and put video with it, and it worked tremendously. But I gotta say this about that video that you were talking about, and as a matter of fact, about all of them. Never once, not one time, I cannot take credit for any of those, because never once did I go to Mike Shields or Randy West and say, hey, I like this song, make me a music video to it. Yeah. That was I was never responsible for that. Those guys did that, and they would turn out one every week. Those guys worked so hard on that stuff. But those guys did those music videos themselves. I can't take any credit for it at all. And when I would show up on a Saturday morning, and I was just as surprised as the fans were that were watching, because I was seeing the music video for the first time myself. And that one that you mentioned, Turn the Page, was really a great one. And they did so many of them that oh gosh, what was the Frank Sinatra, I Did It My Way, and all. Right. I mean, gosh, they put together so many great videos. But I mean, my hat or my crown is off to those guys, because they did all of that work, and they did it for everybody, and they never really got any credit for it. But it was Mike Shields, and it was Andy West that did those things.
Yeah, and excellent job by them. And like Wolfie said earlier, you, in my humble opinion, you are one of the greatest of all times. I mean, you've had so many great matches and storylines and so many partners to work with, from Jackie Fargo to Bill Dundee to handsome Jimmy Valiant, the legendary storyline, of course, with Andy Kaufman, Kurt Hennig, and to me, my personal favorite was the Bret Hart storyline. That was just amazing. I think it showed both your talent and his to the furthest extent. You guys seem to really be working on like 100%. So, I know this is kind of a pretty big question, but what would you say would be your favorite storyline or angle or match of all time?
Well, I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, I have to give credit where credit is due. As far as my career and what did the most for me, it had to be the Andy Kaufman stuff. He wasn't the most fun guy to work with. I mean, he was, because he didn't know what he was doing, and he listened very well, and I could just lead the entire match, and the matches with Andy always worked out well. But just the fact that, his fame from being on the TV show Taxi, his nationwide celebrity that was brought into Memphis wrestling, and I still say, and even recently they had these shows on the A&E network that featured people in search of lost WWE treasures, and we were out there searching for the neck brace that Andy Kaufman wore on the David Letterman show when I slapped him, and one of the things that Triple H said, I mean, who's the biggest, as high as you can get in the WWE right now, he even admitted that he felt like my, whatever you want to call it, whatever my angle or my working with Andy Kaufman changed the face of professional wrestling forever. It changed it from pro wrestling or wrestling, as Vince used to call it, to sports entertainment, because that's when we crossed that bridge and started using other entertainers from the movie or TV world, and it just changed the business. So I have to, even though, I mean, there's some great wrestlers that I worked with, loved, of course, working with Bill Dundee, with Terry Funk was one of my all-time favorites, handsome Jimmy Valiant, Austin Idol. I mean, so many, in my 51 years of wrestling, I've wrestled just about every single pro wrestler that there is. I mean, going all the way back to, I had a tag team match back in the early 70s against Pat O'Connor and Lou Thez, with Jersey Joe Walcott, who was ex-boxing champion, as a special referee, and then come all the way up to today, where I've wrestled. I mean, golly, I've wrestled them all. I mean, from the Undertaker to Stone Cold Steve Austin to John Cena to CM Punk to all of these guys. So, and I can't say that there was anybody that I didn't like working with, but I would have to say, in trying to answer your question, that Andy Kaufman had to be the biggest thing that happened to me and to wrestling.
True.
And I'll tell you what, as a kid watching that, I don't know how, I had a 4-head VCR. Remember when those came out? You could do slow-mo.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times I watched the pile driver and the back suplex over and over and over. And to me, as a kid, I thought the back suplex is what got him, and then that sold it for me. But what really sold it for me was the Letterman show. When you smacked him out of the chair and then he came out cussing. And I mean, and to this day, I haven't really read where you've talked about it a lot, but I don't know if Letterman was in on it or what, or he just sold it well too. But that's what really sold it for me. That can't be topped ever again. As far as
the deal with Letterman, and I've said this many times. And I think that's what made it so good and so believable, is because basically it was real. It was spontaneous. Nobody knew that I was going to slap Andy. Certainly not David Letterman. Andy didn't even know I was going to slap him. And I swear to God, I didn't even know I was going to slap him. It just happened on the spur of the moment. Yeah. We did our 2 segments, which were planned and laid out by Robert Morton, the segment coordinator, before we went on the show. what they wanted us to do in the second segment was that Andy was supposed to apologize to me for making fun of wrestling. I was supposed to apologize to Andy for hurting him on the pile driver, and then Andy was going to get up and sing "What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love." That's what everybody was expecting. That's what we were supposed to do, and Andy never, when we got in that second segment, Andy never really apologized to me, and I never really apologized to him, and it just kept going on. And I think Dave realized we're getting past we're not, something that's gone off the tracks here. And so he was just getting ready to get us out of there, and all of a sudden Paul Schaefer started playing the music to go to commercial, and I literally just stood up. And when I watch it back myself, I think it's like an out-of-body experience. I thought, what the hell was I thinking? And I just stood up, and I looked Andy right in the eyes, and I believe at that point Andy realized what was coming, and I just hauled off and slapped him as hard as I could, knocked him out of the chair. Yeah. Nobody knew that was coming, even myself. I thought I was going to get arrested. I didn't know if they would even show it, and that's what made it so real.
That was awesome. That was, like I said, nobody will ever be able to match that as far as kayfabe goes and keeping it quiet and all that kind of stuff. That's never going to be topped. I'll say that. King, where can the people find you on social media? What do you got coming up? What do you need to plug?
Well, of course, I'm on Twitter. That's my favorite point of social media. I love Twitter. I'm at Jerry Lawler on Twitter. And then, of course, I'm Instagram. That's Real Jerry Lawler. Let's see, I've got Facebook. What else? But the main thing that I'd like to plug that's coming up, September the 18th, Saturday, September the 18th. You, Wolfie, I know you've been a part of them. There's a lot of these things go on around the country where they have, like reunions, get-togethers of a bunch of the great wrestlers. Well, Saturday, September 18th, at Fitzgerald's Casino, which is right near Memphis here, like 16 miles south of Memphis at Tunica, Mississippi. Fitzgerald's Casino, we are having the Jerry Lawler Wrestling Reunion, and it's going to start at noon that day. People are going to be able to come in and see tons of some of the top superstar wrestlers ever that we're going to have there. We got, Arn Anderson is going to be there. Sergeant Slaughter is going to be there. Lex Luger's going to be there. Kurt Angle is going to be there. Thunder Rosa is going to be there. Miranda Gordy's going to be there. Dave Brown, Tommy Rich, Bill Dundee. Oh, my gosh. I missing.
I thought I was going to be there. Scott Steiner, I think.
Yeah, Scott Steiner is going to be there. As a matter of fact, then that's going to go from noon till 5. And then after that, we got a live wrestling show at 7. And I'm wrestling Scott Steiner in the main event there. We're going to have 7 big matches. It's going to be a super day. And get this, tickets to get in are only $20. Oh, and meet all of these great stars.
That's a steal.
Yep. That is a steal.
Well, man,
absolutely.
I want to thank you again for coming on here, King. Thank you for everything that you did for me during my career. I totally appreciate you. You lived up to this little kid's thoughts of you as a little kid once I got to know you, and you continue to do that today. So thanks again for coming on, and man, you have a great day.
All right, Wolfie, thank you so much for having me, buddy. Anytime.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is The Big Picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling YouTube channel.
The heartthrob in the sport, he's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think, you're gonna hear all about it. Fight
In a world that has been completely divided for so long, two movie fans have decided to unite for the people and the betterment of mankind. One, an action movie buff. The other, a horror movie fanatic. Together, they will try to bridge the gap of both genres into one podcast with their battle cry, Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies. Listen along as Charlie and Nate alternate each week talking about action and horror movies they cherish, mostly from the VHS era. Also, including some modern examples that felt like the movies they grew up with by answering the battle cry, Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies. Available wherever you listen to podcasts. Look them up on Facebook and Instagram.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at WarrenWolf13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Live Wolfie D. And then on YouTube at Live and in Color with Wolfie D Podcast. Our website is anchor.fm/Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. Also, do you have a product or business you'd like Wolfie D to talk about? Let us know about it by leaving a recorded message over at anchor.fm/Wolfie D/message. Leave your name and contact info and we'll get back to you. Once again, that's anchor.fm/Wolfie D/message. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening. And we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome.
And here we go, the original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth, still livin' in color, from rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was N-O-D, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are, without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip-hop. Been doing it like this since 92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.